Today we're going to be taking a look at some crazy LEGO stories and the history behind them, including Modulex, Grangemouth, Moondust bricks, and a few others. Here are some of the most obscure LEGO bricks to exist. What if I told you that LEGO once wanted you to glue your sets together? While that might sound like absolute nonsense these days, back in the 1960s and 70s, it was a very real option. Believe it or not, LEGO released their own official glue for builders to use. But why? Well, I guarantee the reason isn't what you're thinking. While designing your dream house in LEGO might seem like a great idea, it's a lot harder than you think. In fact, trying to design a real building out of LEGO bricks caused so many problems that the son of the company's founder started an entirely new company just to solve them. This is Modulex, LEGO's forgotten product line, and this is its story. As a company, LEGO has always been very light-lipped about its business decisions, and the story surrounding the rise, fall, resurrection, and subsequent disappearance of Modulex bricks is no different. Thankfully, the tireless work and dedication of die-hard fans have painted a picture of a company troubled by challenging technologies and uncertain consumer base, and even behind-the-scenes family drama among the company owners. These days, the LEGO modular line is one of the company's most consistent themes, dropping hit after hit year after year. As impressive as these buildings are, though, they aren't exactly authentic, by which I mean that these aren't actually designed to be usable spaces. For example, check out the dentist office in the Assembly Square set. While it sets a great scene, the layout just isn't practical. The dentist can't actually reach the patient's mouth, and likewise the artist's loft in the Parisian restaurant is so small that there's no way anyone could actually work there. And to be perfectly clear, that's fine. These sets are all about setting up fun little displays with the minifigures and always give you dozens of great options. But what if you're looking for something a bit more serious, a little more closer to the real world? Well, the architecture line is an obvious place to start. With picture-perfect recreations of some of the world's most impressive and iconic buildings, this theme is perfect for display, but lacks a certain degree of scale. It's really hard to tell just how big these buildings are supposed to be. Like, the Statue of Liberty and the Empire State Building are both 13.9 inches tall, even though the Empire State Building is really 4 times larger than Lady Liberty. This issue with scale is a well-known problem for LEGO designers going all the way back to the company's founder, Ole Kirk Christensen. While Ole Kirk was renowned for his ability as an architect and carpenter, the Great Depression of the 1930s forced him to change his ways, and he shifted to making small wooden toys. By the 1940s, rapid developments had been made in plastic production, and in 1949, Ole Kirk bought a state-of-the-art injection molding machine to produce the company's first automatic binding bricks. Over the next several years, the designs of these bricks would be improved, until in 1958, LEGO patented the modern brick as we know of it today. Sadly, only 6 weeks after the patent was filed, Ole Kirk passed away, leaving control of the company to his son, Gottfried Kirk Christensen. By the early 1960s, LEGO was already rolling out sets specifically meant to help builders design a house of their own. These early sets were released under the architectural hobby and modeling line and were aimed at a slightly older audience. Now, to call these boxes LEGO sets is a bit misleading, but these boxes didn't come with any instructions, and the parts included were extremely limited. For example, this box came with an 8x11 base plate, 30 1x1 tiles, and 50 2x1 tiles, all only in white. Likewise, this box came with the same base plate and 24 2x4 plates. Much like his father, Gottfried Kirk Christensen was a skilled woodworker and architect. Funnily enough, at the same time that LEGO was releasing these early architecture sets, Gottfried was designing a new home for his family. This is when he discovered a major problem with LEGO bricks: the scale. If you look at a 1x1 brick, you'll notice that it is a bit taller than it is wide. This 5x5x6 ratio is incredibly hard to design with, as it doesn't really match the dimensions of any other building material. This means that trying to design realistically scaled houses with usable interiors is incredibly difficult, if not impossible, with LEGO bricks. This led Gottfried to develop a brand new type of brick. These new bricks would be much smaller than the standard LEGO element, but most importantly, they would be made with a 1x1x1 ratio. While the difference between a 5x5x6 and a 1x1x1 might sound small, it quickly adds up when you start getting into the scale of entire buildings, and these new bricks were meant to be used by professional architects to help them quickly visualize and adjust their designs in 3 dimensions. Additionally, the smaller size of these new bricks was no accident. Architects commonly design buildings at a 1:20 scale, meaning that every centimeter on the blueprint will equal 20 centimeters in the real building. These new bricks were exactly 5 mm on each side, and the standard modeling unit in Europe is 10 centimeters, an exact 1:20 scale. This meant that a single Modulex bricks was perfectly fitted to represent the size, shape, and scale that architects were already familiar with, and one that could be easily translated into the real world. In fact, this is where Modulex got its name. X is the Roman numeral for 10, and each brick, or module, represented 10 centimeters. Module X easily became Modulex, and the first sets were released in 1963 under the title M20, reflecting that these were designed for use in the 1:20 scale. Although they were smaller, these bricks were actually made from the same ABS plastic as regular LEGO elements, and were made to the same level of quality too. At first, these bricks were even branded with the official LEGO logo molded directly onto each stud. While that would eventually change for marketing reasons, it showed how committed LEGO was to making these bricks the very best. These Modulex bricks came in a range of sizes, mostly in line with standard LEGO bricks, with the coolest exception being these 1x5 and 2x5 bricks, which, as far as I know, we've never gotten in a LEGO set. Seriously, LEGO, you put these out more than 60 years ago. It's time to bring back the 1x5 and 2x5. But on the topic of bricks that LEGO should bring out of retirement, Modulex has a huge range of sloped roof tiles that have never made their way into any LEGO set. The closest thing we've ever gotten are the 1x1 cheese wedge pieces introduced in 2004, though the Modulex ones are proportionately taller. But perhaps the coolest of these long-gone bricks are these angled bricks. Seriously, these things allow for some wild angles, and the fact is that we'll likely never get anything like this in a proper LEGO set. But it's not all about bricks, you know, because LEGO has plates and tiles. Both are 1/3 the height of a LEGO brick, but plates have studs on top, while tiles are flat. When it came to Modulex though, the smaller size and preordained scale made this less practical, and tiles were the same height as bricks, simply without studs on top. Plates though were something else entirely. While we got several Modulex base plates like this 50x50 behemoth, actual plates were limited to only 1x12 and 1x16. While that might seem incredibly limiting, there's a surprisingly good reason for this. These plates were meant to be cut apart. While the idea of intentionally cutting apart a LEGO brick might sound like blasphemy to many today, this was actually a major selling point of these Modulex kits. Since these were supposed to be highly customizable tools for professionals to use in a work setting, it was very important that people buying these sets could get everything they needed. Instead of supplying buyers with 100 plates of varying lengths, giving builders a handful of longer plates that they could cut down to whatever size they needed was a very clever solution by LEGO. LEGO even released this large piece, officially called the Modulex Foil Cutter. Though, as you might be able to tell from both the name and the design, this wasn't meant to cut through these plates. One of the other unique features of Modulex was its use of large custom foils that designers could use to highlight different aspects of their build. These 20x50 stud foil sheets came in a range of colors and were perforated with holes to make putting them onto base plates much easier. LEGO even sold a tool specifically built to help with that. Just cut your foil to size and use the comb to gently press everything in place. Easy, right? I don't know about you, but sometimes I have a hard time just getting a single sticker put on straight onto a LEGO set. I can't imagine how hard this would be, especially considering how small these Modulex pieces really are. But it gets even weirder. Arguably, the worst thing you can do to LEGO bricks is glue them together. I mean, that was literally the entire point of the LEGO movie. But again, these weren't toys. These were professional tools that could make or break careers. If my job is on the line, there's no way I'm risking my model falling apart right before my presentation. Well, LEGO was one step ahead of the game, and they even released their official Modulex glue. You'll notice that it doesn't say LEGO anywhere on the bottle, nor was it on the original packaging. That's pretty strange for a company that loves to put its logo on everything, but once again, there's a good reason here. But before I get to that, I need to point out one super cool feature from these early sets: minifigures. Modulex sold a few figures that you could either glue together yourself or buy pre-built. While these have nothing in common with modern minifigures, these were released a full 15 years earlier, making them one of LEGO's earliest attempts at plastic people. In the mid-1960s, LEGO was going through a major growth spurt, as its toys were slowly gaining worldwide fame. While this is a dream come true for any toy company, it's less than ideal for a company trying to sell architectural modeling kits to very serious businessmen. While today, the idea of an architect, lawyer, or doctor having a LEGO set on display isn't really an issue for most people, that simply wasn't the case back in the 1960s. You see, trying to sell what was largely seen as a child's toy at the time to an architectural and design firm was something of an uphill battle, and LEGO took several steps to distance itself from Modulex in the public eye. Aside from the size, the biggest difference between Modulex and LEGO was the colors. In 1963, LEGO bricks were only coming in yellow, red, blue, white, black, green, and transparent. While there's really nothing wrong with those colors, their bright tones didn't exactly scream professionalism. To help convince architectural firms that these were serious tools and not just children's toys, LEGO released the Modulex line in a completely unique color palette. When these tiny bricks launched in 1963, they were available in transparent, black, white, gray, olive green, brown, ochre yellow, teal blue, terracotta, and buff. Aside from black, white, and transparent, none of these colors had even been seen by LEGO fans before, and many of them would never be seen again either. Since these bricks were being designed for professional model making, they needed to have a more muted, neutral color scheme, and these bricks certainly fit the bill. Unfortunately, many of these colors don't have any kind of perfect match in modern bricks. For example, Modulex Brown is pretty close to dark tan, terracotta is pretty similar to medium nougat, and olive green is almost identical to the modern color of the same name, but they're not quite the same. Interestingly enough, teal blue and ochre yellow have never seen a LEGO color quite like them. Of all of the Modulex colors released over the years, only one has made its way into proper LEGO. Buff started appearing in LEGO sets as tan in 1981. As you can see, LEGO was pretty serious about the branding here behind Modulex. From the size to the colors, there was no way to confuse Modulex with LEGO. These were serious tools for serious people. Even still, LEGO never slouched on quality, and these bricks gradually began to find a loyal fan base among architects looking for a new way to envision 3D spaces. For these architects, working with Modulex was shockingly easy. Thanks to the bricks 1:1:1 ratio, all that designers needed to do was take a blueprint and sketch it out on some grid paper where each square represented a single stud. There were even transparent base plates that could be placed directly on top of plans as a reference. While these sets certainly didn't have instructions as we might think of them today, they did kind of have a sort of uniform building code that designers were expected to follow. It's one thing when you're making your own fantasy home, but if you're trying to design a real-world office, then everything needs to be on the same page about what different builds represent, and these guides were a must for any user. To many professionals that use these bricks, using Modulex to design buildings was an incredibly easy and intuitive solution, but it was still having a hard time catching on. There's a very large chance that the association with a kid's toy was a driving factor here. If that seems a bit far-fetched, let me just point out that LEGO actually stopped creating these bricks with the LEGO logo on them. Instead, the company changed their molds to include a simple capital M for Modulex on each stud. This might sound like a small change, but LEGO has always been very prominent with their logos, and this just highlights how much they were willing to change for a product that they believed in. It's unclear exactly when this happened, but it seems to have been a gradual change over a few years in the mid-1960s. In fact, in 1965, Modulex split off from LEGO to become its own company. This new company was still wholly owned by LEGO, but this new independence allowed them to focus on growing their new brand in whatever way they deemed best. Unfortunately though, branding wasn't the only challenge facing Modulex. In the second half of the 20th century, advances in steelworking and construction were leading to a rapid change in the design of buildings. Out were the shorter, classical brick-built buildings that still populate the centers of European cities, and in were the large glass and metal skyscrapers that have become synonymous with modern cities. This change was accompanied by a shift from simpler, more conservative buildings to wilder, more modern buildings, with all manner of shapes, angles, and colors. Modulex was designed from the ground up to help with more classical buildings, and these changing styles were pushing the system to its limits. The final major issue facing Modulex at this time was its price. LEGO bricks have never been cheap, and these smaller versions were no exception. Before the advent of modern computers and design software, architects commonly used wood and cardstock for their designs. While they are far less durable than plastic, they also offer more freedom and flexibility, since they can be easily cut to any size, but most importantly, they were also far cheaper than Modulex. So basically, we've got a product here that customers are slightly embarrassed to use, struggling to keep up with current trends, and is more expensive than other options. That's a very hard sell for any company. Still, the team behind Modulex believed in their product and went back to the drawing board. If these little bricks weren't ideal for architectural design, what could they be used for? Well, the answer was obvious: industrial design and layout. As factories grew larger and more complex, the need for intense layout planning was becoming greater and greater, and Modulex's scale and customizability made it the perfect solution. With designers able to build perfect scale replicas of each machine, assembly line, office, and break room, designing the interior layout of a factory had never been easier. Sure, drawings and blueprints are nice, but there's nothing quite like a fully fleshed out 3D model to really paint a picture of what a space will look like when everything's said and done. These same ideas could also be used in larger layouts for entire campuses or office parks. Finally, the Modulex team had struck gold. This new concept was a smashing success, and industries across Europe quickly started using these little blocks. Just look at these very serious businessmen poring over their new model. I just love how intense the expressions on their faces are. But it wasn't just businesses either. You see, schools in the US and Canada were sent kits with unique geographical base plates which they could use to learn about city planning. Today, these are seemingly impossible to find, and these are the only images that I was able to track down of them, making them one of the rarest kits of all time. Over the next few years, Modulex continued to grow and expand to a few new areas. Perhaps the most successful was the Modulex planning system, which used massive base plates as sort of a corkboard to help businesses manage and track projects. This system came with hundreds of unique printed tiles that, although not great for play, were exactly what any business would need to keep organized. On top of these new parts, it also introduced a wide range of new colors, such as red, pastel blue, pastel green, lemon, pink, and orange. Although these colors might sound very familiar to you, these colors, such as Modulex Red, were a slightly more muted shade compared to the standard color that we're used to seeing in all LEGO sets these days. What's funny though is that many of these new colors were produced with both the old LEGO logo and the newer M logo. This is likely just because Modulex hadn't yet replaced all of their molds. And so at this time, this Modulex planning system was incredibly customizable and was a near instant hit for the company. No matter what you needed to keep track of, the Modulex planning system had something for you to use. While this might seem redundant or very outdated in today's world, the ability to keep a consistent and well-organized workflow was something of a revolution at the time, as computers of the day simply weren't up to that task yet. Over the next few years, the Modulex system would be used at companies in more than 25 countries, including Volkswagen, Ford, multiple airline companies, Kodak, and even NASA. As the company entered the 1970s, things were looking bright. Perhaps the last major Modulex product line to use these special bricks was the plan copy system. This followed the lead set by the larger wall charts, but was scaled down significantly to match standard paper sizes. The idea here was simple. You could use any of the set's hundreds of unique printed pieces to create smaller versions of charts, designs, or memos. These could then easily be copied or faxed as needed, making sure that everyone had the most recent version. Again, in the modern world, this seems unnecessary, but this was 50 years ago. Throughout the 1970s, Modulex continued to improve upon its designs and expand its offerings, and soon proved itself to be an invaluable tool for displaying large amounts of visual information quickly and clearly. As such, the company began to increase its product range into the incredibly fun and very exciting world of office signage. I won't go into too much detail here because, well, let's be honest, it's kind of boring, but it's worth at least highlighting a few key moments. Once again, this is incredibly difficult to find images of, but just from what I can tell, it was a scaled-up version of the planning system and plan copy lines with large base plates and hundreds of large, easy-to-read letter tiles. Basically, it was just a smaller version of standard marquee signs, just made out of plastic plates and tiles in a range of colors and text sizes. This was such a smash success that Modulex soon rolled out several upgraded versions, though many of these stopped using bricks. The EDS 700 series did use bricks as well as these really cool LCDs, which made them great for areas where rapidly changing numbers were useful, such as stock markets and currency exchanges. You see how Modulex is more than just a brick company now? Over the next few decades, Modulex continued to expand its offerings and began selling large outdoor signs, which completely abandoned the brick system altogether. However, the planning system stuck around, won several international awards, and even introduced a third wave of colors at some point in the 1990s. This, like everything else in the early 90s, were much brighter and more vibrant. Overall, we got 8 colors: charcoal gray, medium gray, reddish pink, light orange, medium blue, light yellow, aqua green, and violet. These definitely pop a lot more than the older ones, and the aqua green is a particular favorite of mine. In the early 1990s, Modulex merged with the North American company ASI Sign Systems and continued to offer the brick system for much of the next decade. Sadly, by the early 2000s, advancements in computer software and displays were quickly rendering many of the benefits of the Modulex layout system obsolete. In 2004, the Modulex brick system was officially retired after more than 40 years of success. However, the company is still very much around today as one of the largest producers of office and architectural signs in the world. Unfortunately, many fans of these little plastic bricks were quite upset by this news. While Modulex isn't at all compatible with standard LEGO, that didn't stop fans from using these smaller parts in their builds. Over the years following the cancellation of Modulex bricks, these parts began to develop somewhat of a cult following. The mystery of these obscure bricks, combined with a massive boost in LEGO's popularity, led to them becoming a rare and valuable collector's item to the right buyer. Sadly though, it seemed like we'd never again see LEGO in this scale. But then, a full 10 years after the product's cancellation, a ray of hope appeared on the horizon. In the mid-2010s, the Modulex company sold off the production rights to a new company called Modulex Bricks AS, giving them full rights to produce and sell these bricks again. Now, at this point, things get a bit fuzzy and I really had to do some digging. This new company, Modulex AS, was completely unrelated to the original company, and was started with the sole intention of bringing Modulex back from the grave to target a new wave of customers. Where things get even more complex, though, is just who founded this company. Modulex AS was started by a man named Anders Kirk Johansson, a great-grandson of LEGO founder Ole Kirk Christensen and the grandson of Gottfried Kirk Christensen. Now, you might be thinking, oh, that's great. LEGO has always been a family company, and it's so cool that after all of these years, the family still believes in these outdated products enough to try to bring them back. Well, it seems that that's not exactly the case here. Before I go on, it's important to stress that while we do have several facts, there's a lot of speculation here, and LEGO has always played its cards very close to its chest, and there's a lot of family drama involved, so things get a bit complicated. First though, let's go over what we know for a fact. Anders Johansson bought the rights to Modulex in 2014, intending to bring them back into full production. According to a Brickset report from January 2015, production had been moving along throughout 2014. Molds were being prepared, parts were being designed, and tests were being run. Everything was moving along smoothly. Then suddenly, everything went silent in December. In January 2015, Modulex AS and LEGO announced that LEGO had stepped in and bought Modulex AS in its entirety for an undisclosed amount of money. There was almost no explanation for this decision at all, but the LEGO Group did release a press statement that contained some very interesting language. The press release stated that, quote, "It has been important for the LEGO Group owner family to ensure historic rights stay within the owner family. The potential to produce Modulex bricks has also been addressed, and there are no plans to manufacture Modulex bricks in the near future." First of all, the last line all but confirms that LEGO has zero plans to bring Modulex back, so why not let another company do it? The first sentence here gives us our single largest clue. The use of the term owner family stands out as incredibly intentional. I mean, Anders Johansson is a direct descendant of both Ole Kirk and Gottfried Kirk, so what's the deal? Well, Ole Kirk had 4 children, and upon his death, control of the company was passed down to his son Gottfried. Eventually, Gottfried passed the torch to his son Kjeld. Over the decades, many of the other family members sold off their shares in the company, including Kjeld's sister Gunhild, who sold in 2007. This left these parts of the family with zero control over and zero stake in LEGO as a company. Well, Gunhild had a son named Anders Kirk Johansson. Even though his uncle was the head of LEGO, Anders has no ties to the company and is not part of the quote owner family. Although related, his part of the family doesn't own any stake in the company anymore. So it seems that Anders Johansson understandably is very upset with his ancestors' short-sighted decision to sell off their stake in the company, and so he'd actually decided to make his own brick company, and that he'd do it with the same line that LEGO abandoned. There's certainly a bit of poetic justice in that, but why did LEGO stop him? They gave up on the rights long ago, and clearly stated that they have no intention of bringing Modulex back. Also, there's no shortage of knockoff LEGO bricks out there, so what gives? Well, the truth is that we'll never know, but family drama can last for generations, and this could be a small peek behind the curtain. Now, all of this raises a lot of questions, like, if Modulex was so successful, why does LEGO seem to pretend like it never happened? Today, the LEGO website makes no mention of Modulex anywhere. Likewise, the Modulex website only mentions LEGO briefly on its history page. If I had to guess, the reason why LEGO has distanced itself from Modulex isn't out of shame or family drama or anything like that, it's just because, well, Modulex was never meant to be fun. It was not a kid's toy. In fact, they were never designed to be toys. These were office tools for professional settings that's hard to match with LEGO's playful, kid-friendly attitude. While the two products were invented by the same company, they served very different purposes, and separating the two makes total sense from a branding and marketing perspective. Still, it's a little sad that we'll likely never see this product line again. But what do you think? Did LEGO treat Modulex right? Should they have let Anders bring the bricks back? It's difficult to say, but next we have a brick that LEGO would like to never see again. These special LEGO bricks may be beautiful, but their history is quite the opposite. Behind these bricks is a rich history and countless stories of scandal, curiosity, and rebellion. LEGO absolutely despises these bricks, and the reason why is incredibly interesting. At first, you might think that these are some kind of knockoff product, but the LEGO logo is right there on each brick. The fact is that these are real LEGO bricks that are nowadays incredibly rare and valuable. We're talking upwards of $500 per brick. So what are they? What caused this incredible marbling, and most notably, what does a tiny town in Scotland have to do with all of this? These beautifully marbled yet highly controversial bricks are referred to as Grangemouth bricks, named after a small town of about 16,000 people along the coast of Scotland. Today, the town is mostly known for its chemical plant and seaport. So why is this style of marbled LEGO bricks named after them? Let's dig in. To figure out what these bricks are, we first need to go back to when LEGO began making plastic bricks in 1949. Back then, the company was more focused on creating wooden toys, and making the switch to plastic required a brand new way of doing things. This process is vital to understand Grangemouth bricks. I go more in depth in other videos on my channel, but the basic explanation is that LEGO bricks start off as small pellets of ABS plastic. Typically, pre-colored pellets are used, but LEGO also has the ability to add special dye to achieve precise color requirements. All of LEGO's raw plastic pellets are stored in giant 3-story silos until they're needed. Once it's time to make the bricks, the plastic pellets are transported over to the injection molding machines, where they are heated up to a temperature of 450 degrees Fahrenheit or 232 degrees Celsius and melted. This extremely hot, liquefied plastic is then injected into the brick mold and allowed to cool. After this, the newly formed LEGO bricks are ejected and the whole process starts all over again. Now, LEGO can make a lot of elements with these molds, and by that I mean a lot of them. At the main factory in Billund, they crank out 36,000 parts every minute of every day. However, just like any process, there are limits. For example, changing colors between injections takes time and can cause some issues. Even though it's a liquid when it's injected into the molds, the plastic does cool pretty quickly, about 7 seconds from start to finish. This means that after each run, there can be a bit of plastic that's caught in the injection lines or crevices, especially in LEGO's older molding machines. Nowadays, this process is a lot more standardized and optimized, but this was not the case in the mid to late 1900s. As you may suspect, this is where the marbling comes in. When two different colors of plastic are injected at once, they don't mix completely. Instead, they create this distinct pattern of marbling. If a specific mold is switching from, say, red to yellow, then you might end up with a batch of bricks that look like this. As cool as these may look, LEGO classifies these as error bricks and manufacturing waste that must be immediately discarded or destroyed. No, you can't keep them, and no, nothing you say will change LEGO's mind. LEGO really does not want want these bricks available to the public because they're seen as mistakes and test bricks. Of course, this doesn't explain anything about the town in Scotland, but don't worry because we're getting there. Now, although LEGO might not like these marbled bricks, they've been regularly using this technique for quite some time, albeit slightly differently in a more controlled manner. This is key. We've all seen the two color flame pieces that pop up in many sets, as well as the ghost minifigure piece, such as on multiple LEGO Ninjago minifigures. Since this is intentional marbling, LEGO is fine with it. Most of the time, it's a combination of a transparent color and an opaque color, but not always. Just check out this Husky and this German Shepherd for examples of this being used with two opaque colors. However, my favorite piece that uses this style has got to be the blue and yellow parrot. You might notice that the dogs and the flames don't really have the same degree of marbling as the parrot or these impressive bricks, and you're right. While the same basic idea is being used by two different colors of plastic in the same mold, there's quite a difference. The dogs and many minifigures that use two colors use a technique called dual molding. Here, two colors are injected simultaneously from different points in the mold. In fact, LEGO can even triple or quadruple mold some elements, which is quite impressive. Notice how clean and consistent these lines are. There's almost zero bleeding between the colors, and every single copy will look pretty much identical. Now compare that to the parrot and you'll see just how much messier the blending is here. Not only do the colors mix and swirl, but no two are exactly the same. Okay, so now that we know how bricks are made, what do they have to do with Scotland? And if LEGO is so keen to keep these particular bricks out of the public's hands, then where did all of these colorful samples come from? Well, to answer that, we need to go back to the 1960s. But first, if you're enjoying this video so far, please take a quick second to hit subscribe and turn on notifications. It's the single best way to support my channel. Now, as you may know, LEGO is the largest toy company in the world, but that wasn't always the case. Back in the 1960s, LEGO wasn't big enough to handle the worldwide supply of LEGO bricks from its own facilities and factories. As a result, production was outsourced to countries around the world, and many of these factories were owned by or cooperated with third parties. In the UK, the rights to produce LEGO bricks were owned by a company known as the Courtaulds Corporation from 1960 until 1992, and this company produced LEGO bricks in their factory located in Wales until about 1979. However, the company Courtaulds was just the factory where the bricks were made, and they still needed to source their plastic from somewhere else. Exactly where they had sourced their plastic remained a mystery until the summer of 2014, when several new documents came to light and really described the situation. Enter Borg-Warner Chemicals, a huge chemical manufacturer and supplier that had extensive operations in Grangemouth, Scotland. Borg-Warner was and still is an American-owned chemical company that made its name by developing a brand new kind of plastic called Cycolac ABS. If that name rings a bell, you might remember that LEGO is made out of ABS plastic. Yeah, that's no coincidence. Borg-Warner was the company that invented the plastic that LEGO uses to this day. So to quickly refresh, we've got an American chemical producer called Borg-Warner with a plant in Grangemouth, Scotland that is selling ABS plastic to Courtaulds, who's the one actually making LEGO bricks in Wales for the Danish company of LEGO. Truly globalization at work. But that still doesn't answer where these marbled bricks came from. Well, here's what happened. When LEGO first partnered with Courtaulds in the 1960s, they had to provide the new factory with all the required molds. LEGO molds are quite large and can weigh hundreds of pounds. Beyond their size though, the incredible quality control that LEGO is famous for all starts with these molds. These things are so valuable to LEGO that for decades they would bury retired molds in the foundations of their new factories just so that they couldn't fall into competitors' hands. And well, it seems that the Courtaulds Corporation didn't have quite the level of discretion and carefulness that LEGO would have liked. At some point in the 1970s, Courtaulds sent Borg-Warner a 2x4 brick mold of their very own. This was done so that Borg-Warner could perfect prototypes of new formulas for their plastic. They could try different combinations of ingredients on their very own mold, test them, and then produce the very best plastic. And it worked. For a while, until Borg-Warner employees began taking advantage of this opportunity. Over the course of 1977 through 1978, some rebellious employees at Borg-Warner ran their own experiments without permission from LEGO. In fact, they did this completely behind LEGO's back. Several engineers in Borg-Warner's color lab started mixing various colors in the mold to create what they called granite bricks. These marbled bricks were an instant hit with the creators, and they made thousands of them in all sorts of different color combinations, either for fun or also to sell for profit. While today it's impossible to know exactly how many were produced, it's likely tens of thousands over the 2-year period. The crazy part of all of this is that LEGO never knew that Borg-Warner had one of their precious brick molds until the the colorful bricks began to flood the market. It was only Courtaulds that had the rights to produce bricks in the UK, certainly not random employees running brick color experiments for fun at Borg Warner Chemical. So when LEGO began to get suspicious of what was going on, what did Borg Warner do? Well, the engineers decided that the best thing for them to do was to simply give them away to all of the kids around Grangemouth, Scotland. Many ended up in daycares, schools, and actual households. Ever since then, these bricks have been known as Grangemouth bricks. And while it is possible that this charitable donation was done with LEGO's permission, the fact that LEGO currently destroys all of their marbled bricks, combined with the fact that LEGO never officially allowed Borg Warner to make any bricks in the first place, makes it far more likely that this was done by Borg Warner once again without permission from LEGO. But that wasn't the end, because not long after these bricks were produced, LEGO stopped all manufacturing in the UK. And while it's not clear exactly why, or if this lapse in corporate security played any part, it is certainly possible that LEGO was very upset by the fact that a factory had let a precious mold of theirs go to an unauthorized company. Regardless, LEGO had upped their production capacity enough to no longer require licensed factories, leading to the end of most license deals as they began directly producing bricks within their own factory in Denmark. However, Courtaulds was able to keep the distribution rights for LEGO in the UK despite not actually being the manufacturer anymore. Today, these Grangemouth bricks are for the most part the only available marbled bricks out there, and many of them are held by collectors. While it's certainly possible that some LEGO factory employees today might be able to smuggle a few out or create their own, the fact that we don't see this happening shows that LEGO has some serious control over what comes out of their factories. I mean, there are thousands of examples of malformed LEGO bricks that people have found over the decades, but I for one have never gotten a mistakenly marbled brick in any set that I've ever opened. This scarcity has made these bricks extremely valuable, if you can even find one for sale, that is. A quick check over on eBay shows only 3 for sale at this point, and the cheapest one is nearly $200, with some of the more rare colors going for upwards of $800 a piece. However, if you are extremely lucky, they can still be found in random toy shops in and around Grangemouth, Scotland, and there are several reports of tourists getting lucky. And while LEGO might not be the biggest fan of these incredible looking bricks, they at least recognize that they are a cool and unique part in the company's history. And in spring of 2021, LEGO announced that they would be selling limited editions of these marbled bricks on their website for a certain amount of VIP rewards points. This instantly got people's attention, as this would be a literal once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. But then people looked a little bit closer and realized when this was announced. April 1st. Yeah, this entire thing was an April Fool's joke by LEGO, and I remember that it tricked quite a few LEGO fans. Who knows though, maybe one day you'll make the difficult decision to buy one of these rare and beautiful bricks for hundreds of dollars. Whilst LEGO might not like these marbled pieces, they have gone and officially made some unique textured bricks. From bricks made from moon rocks to precious metals and diamonds, LEGO is no stranger to experimenting, so let's explore the most unique LEGO bricks ever made. LEGO and space exploration have a seemingly long history together, and this first brick is seriously out of this world. In early 2024, the European Space Agency announced that they were working with LEGO on a new project aimed at creating building bricks from moon dust. Now, to be clear, the goal here is not to create the next big toy, but to experiment with moon rocks as a viable building material. But why? Well, launching things into space is incredibly expensive. For example, the Apollo 11 mission that sent the first humans to the moon in 1969 cost about $355 million US, or about $3 billion in today's money. With that kind of astronomical price, sending a bunch of heavy construction materials to the moon simply isn't feasible, and that's where LEGO comes in. In an effort to lower the costs, the ESA has been searching for ways to create building materials directly from the resources available on the moon, which consist mostly of rocks, more rocks, and dust. And while rocks are in fact very good building materials, we don't know a whole lot about moon rocks, specifically as we haven't brought back many, and those that we do have are fairly small. So why did the ESA and LEGO team up? Well, take a look at this absolutely beautiful piece of modern engineering. This 1-to-1 scale brick was 3D printed by ESA scientists to test whether or not moon dust could be pressed and shaped into a brick sturdy enough to build with. In fact, this project was quite the success, because these finished bricks can stack just like regular LEGO bricks. Looking up close, it's pretty obvious that it isn't created using the same injection molding process as plastic bricks, but that's the whole point. It's an incredible proof of concept that shows that it is in fact possible to construct bricks from moon rocks when astronauts eventually build on the moon. Now, it's worth mentioning that technically these bricks are meteorite bricks, as the ESA USA wasn't willing to risk any of the incredibly rare lunar rock samples on this experiment, and so they had to use the next best thing: rock samples taken directly from a 4.5 billion year old meteorite discovered in West Africa in the year 2000. Will this technology ever truly take off? Well, only time will tell. Now, LEGO is constantly trying to create new bricks and has partnered with many companies to make it happen. Back in 2011, NASA launched the Juno spacecraft to measure Jupiter's gravitational and magnetic fields. For 5 long years, this satellite flew through the darkness of space until it finally arrived at the gas giant. While 5 years in space is a very long time, Juno wasn't alone. As it turns out, LEGO had created 3 unique minifigures for this occasion: the Roman god Jupiter, his wife Juno, and the astronomer Galileo, who first observed Jupiter's 4 largest moons. Now, the plastic that LEGO uses is incredibly durable. Well, except brown, but that's another story. But regular plastic bricks simply aren't up to the task of interplanetary travel. To make sure these figures survived, these 3 were made out of space-grade aluminum. As a fun fact, these are actually the most valuable minifigures ever, with an estimated value of over $2 billion. Granted, this number comes from how much it would theoretically cost to fly all the way to Jupiter and collect them. Apparently, they each cost around $5,000 to produce. And while we'll never see these 3 exact ones again, there was a second set made as a backup. However, LEGO has kept their location a closely guarded secret. Although space-grade aluminum is pretty cool, it's not the only time that LEGO has released metal bricks. If you've ever seen the LEGO Masters TV show, then you're probably familiar with the golden brick, which can spare a team the risk of elimination. On top of this, there's also the platinum brick and the new titanium brick, which is a new twist on the formula. However, what fans might not realize is that these bricks are sadly nothing more than just standard LEGO bricks made out of typical plastic. But according to LEGO Masters US judge Amy Corbett, this isn't some cost-cutting strategy, because as it turns out, they had originally planned to have a solid gold brick that they wanted to use, but it just didn't look right on camera. Amy stated in an interview that, quote, "We had a real gold metal brick ready, and it didn't look good and shiny on camera. We had to go back to the plastic brick because it gave us the best sparkle and effect on the camera." Now, while gold bricks might not be the best choice if you're trying to create a TV show apparently, this isn't the only time that LEGO has played around with the precious metal. Between 1979 and 1981, the LEGO factory in Germany decided to reward their most loyal employees. Workers who had been at the plant for at least 25 years were given these incredibly rare solid gold bricks. Each of these bricks was made out of 14-karat gold, weighs in at 25.65 grams, and has the exact same dimensions as a standard 2x4 brick. At today's prices, that much gold is worth about $1,100 US, but the value of these bricks goes so far beyond that. They're collector's items now. While the exact number of these bricks are impossible to know, the best estimates claim that there are fewer than 10 of these in existence, and the last time one went up for auction, the winning bid was a staggering $15,000 US. That's extremely expensive, but do you know what's free? Subscribing to this channel. If you're enjoying this video, tap subscribe and maybe even ring that notification bell so you don't miss any of my videos. But you see, it's not all moon rocks and precious metals. LEGO is a toy company after all, and has released plenty of specialty bricks more focused on fun. In 2007, LEGO partnered with Kellogg's to create the fun and delicious LEGO Fun Snacks. These sweet treats were fruit-flavored gummy candies designed in the shape of the classic 2x2 brick. While these snacks were initially fairly successful, some people didn't see the appeal, and the candy was removed from store shelves by the end of 2008. Why? Well, shortly after the product's release, a group called Consumers International awarded LEGO the extremely dubious, blindingly obvious danger award, suggesting that the block-shaped treats pose a serious safety hazard to young children who couldn't tell the difference between the soft gummy candy and the hard plastic toy. It's worth pointing out that while the two do look quite similar at first glance, they are very different. For one, the gummies have no holes on the bottom, and secondly, when you compare them side by side, it's pretty easy to tell which you should eat and which should go into your next LEGO build. But for the safety of kids, these were removed from store shelves and discontinued. However, this wouldn't be LEGO's last attempt at creating edible LEGO bricks. Around the same time in 2007, LEGO and Kellogg's actually partnered again to release the LEGO Eggo Waffle. A brick made out of waffle batter? Now we're talking. At the time, Eggo's slogan was LEGO My Eggo, so this collaboration just made so much sense from a marketing standpoint. Once toasted, these 2x4 breakfast bricks could be built and stacked with each other, though they obviously didn't match up with standard LEGO bricks. Sadly, the actual design left something to be desired for some people. While the tops had 8 studs, the bottom only had 3 holes, making stacking incredibly difficult. Unlike the gummies though, these were impossible to confuse for the real thing, and they remained on store shelves for several years before being retired. So far, none of the bricks mentioned have ever appeared in a LEGO set, but that doesn't mean that the company isn't innovating on its flagship products. As the largest toy company in the world, LEGO uses a lot of plastic, about 100,000 tons of ABS each year. While plastic is easy to work with and incredibly durable, it isn't exactly the most most sustainable material out there since oil is a non-renewable resource. And so since 2018, LEGO has been making bricks using sugarcane, starting with several plant parts and aiming to be fully sustainable by 2030. The company has a full-time team of 100 people dedicated solely to this goal. According to LEGO, they're experimenting with more than 600 new materials. Aside from plastic made from sugarcane, LEGO has also created bricks from a range of recycled materials. Today, many of the company's transparent bricks are made from 20% recycled plastic taken from artificial marble kitchen counters. LEGO also successfully created a brick made entirely from recycled plastic bottles. However, the program was scrapped fairly quickly. Why? Well, recycling plastic is very difficult to do, and these new bricks actually created even more greenhouse gas emissions than traditional bricks. Plus, they were more expensive for LEGO to make. It was a great concept, but not realistic in practice. Now, with the hundreds of sets LEGO releases each year, it's easy to forget that LEGO makes more than toys. LEGO gear is a huge part of the company's strategy, and everything from keychains to clothes to lighters have been released sporting the famous logo. These LEGO crayon bricks made out of wax can be used to sketch out a model before building, but surprisingly they also connect with normal LEGO bricks. Moving on, these bricks made out of rubber are LEGO erasers, but they can also be stacked on top of each other or with classic LEGO bricks. And if you've ever complained that LEGO bricks are just too hard or sharp, then check out these plushy versions of some of the LEGO collectible minifigures. Could this be hinting at a LEGO pillow one day down the line? Would that even be comfortable? Stepping on a LEGO is bad enough, so I think I'll pass. Moving on, it's well known by now that LEGO has a lot of imitators. While most of them try to copy the company exactly, a few dare to do something a little different. A couple fans have attempted to create fuzzy LEGO bricks, such as colorful hairy minifigure heads, which are a bit jarring to look at, but certainly a fun idea. And also, for some reason, LEGO soap seems to be a fairly common product, with bars coming in both classic 2x4 brick style, as well as these seriously adorable minifigures likely created using LEGO ice trays, which is an official LEGO product. While some LEGO clothes or soap might be a great way to show off your love for the product, there's at least one company taking things to an almost obscene level. One jeweler has released a collection of jewelry called building blocks, with some seriously expensive bling. Just take a look at this diamond ring selling for $25,000. I have a few questions about this piece, but the most important one is, can I use it in a build? I guess we'll never know, but you can use sound bricks in a build. When LEGO announced the release of the new Harry Potter sorting hat set, I was excited. I mean, I think most people would like to wear the sorting hat to learn which house they belong in. When I heard that the price was going to be around $100 US, I pictured something nearly life-size. However, I then discovered that this set would contain a mere 561 pieces and was barely 10 inches wide at the base, which confused me. $100 for just over 500 pieces is nearly double what this set should cost, and I was worried that LEGO had finally resorted to a LEGO Harry Potter cash grab. But then I looked a little bit closer when official images were revealed, and of course, this set's name is actually the talking sorting hat. And that's not just clever marketing. You see, this set features something that is incredibly rare in a LEGO set. Sound. That's right, this set comes with one of LEGO's rarest features, a sound brick. While light bricks are fairly common in sets such as the motorized lighthouse, the Monkey Kid Ultra Mech, and the red London telephone box, sound bricks are much rarer. In fact, LEGO has only ever released a total of 15 unique sound bricks going back to 1986 in various clever sets. So before anything else, we need to take a minute to understand just how we got here. As I mentioned, the first sound brick started hitting store shelves all the way back in 1986. At this time, LEGO was already an established player in the toy game, but was nowhere near the same size that they are today. In fact, they were actually struggling. Cheap electric toys had begun to flood store shelves at the time, and inanimate plastic bricks were just having a hard time competing. Around this time though, LEGO decided that it was time to try and introduce a little razzle-dazzle to revive the interest in plastic bricks. And so the company rolled out the LEGO Light and Sound system line. This first year saw the release of the first audible LEGO sets, and they came in two lines, City and Space. Down on Earth, we got the Hook and Ladder truck, which came with 106 pieces and cost $20. While that price might not seem like much today, when it's adjusted for inflation, this set would have cost around $56 in today's money for 100 pieces. Yeah, these sound bricks have never been cheap. That year, this same piece appeared in the 77-piece mobile police truck build. What's really cool though is that that these bricks made two different sounds that could be selected by rotating the round brick. This allowed the sirens to match both the European and American police vehicles, which is quite neat. Looking to the sky, the classic space theme was another logical choice for sound bricks, but these sets came with a different sound brick. While the rescue vehicles on the ground made classic siren sounds, these space bricks made a series of much more science fiction-y beeps and boops. The most famous of these early space sound sets has got to be the Sonic Robot, also released in 1986. This 103-piece build just oozes classic space vibes, and even includes the fairly rare classic blue spaceman. Over the next few years, we'd get a total of 8 more space sets and 5 more city sets that came with one of these early sound bricks, until they were finally discontinued in 1994, with the Coastal Patrol being amongst the last set to use them. This last year of production also saw the single largest and coolest of these early sets though, the Monorail Transport Base. This 573-piece build came with a range of lights and sounds and sold for a whopping $178, or about $375 in today's money. With only 15 or so sets released over 8 years though, it seems like LEGO never really had really big plans for these sound bricks. Were they designed as a quick gimmick to drum up sales? Possibly. Or did the novelty of a sound brick just eventually wear off? Maybe. Since LEGO has always been tight-lipped about any details, we'll never really know for certain, but we can make some guesses. First of all, the price. An electronic brick takes a lot more effort on LEGO's part in manufacturing than does just a classic plastic one. And I mean, paying the equivalent of more than $50 for 100 bricks is a big ask for consumers. Adding to this though, the public's perception of LEGO at the time was very different than it is right now. While today, LEGO is a truly prestigious company and countless celebrities and athletes are proud and vocal LEGO fans, that wasn't always the case, because back in the mid to late 1980s, LEGO was nothing more than just a kid's toy, and an increasingly expensive one at that. Price aside, there's also the issue of function. While these bricks were the same quality as any other LEGO product, they also came with some severe limitations. The biggest hurdle that these early bricks faced was something that we take for granted today: batteries. While nowadays batteries are incredibly compact, long-lasting, and rechargeable, that simply wasn't the case back in the 1980s and 90s. Back then, if you wanted light or sound in a LEGO set, you needed to include this behemoth. This massive brick held a single 9-volt battery and had a small button that could be pressed to activate any connected light or sound bricks. The sheer size of this part meant that every build had to make room for this very large block, which led to some incredibly blocky designs. If you look through some of these early sets, you'll see that many of them are just housing for the battery pack with some wheels or wings attached. Additionally, these bricks would then need to be wired into the sound bricks if you wanted them to actually work. This created several possible points of failure, and the results weren't always up to par with LEGO's generally high level of quality. Now, while these battery boxes wouldn't go away entirely for some time, the role of sound in LEGO sets took a back seat for several years. While in the early 2000s we saw a handful of sets using sound bricks, such as the Jackstone Police HQ and the Red Flash Station from 2001, these features weren't really the main selling point of the set. Furthermore, most of these sets were targeting the younger demographic of LEGO fans around the ages of 4 to 6, so adding a little extra in the form of sound made sense. These bricks also came in a few different colors and were considerably smaller than the old battery boxes, making them at least a little bit more versatile. By 2006 though, things were changing, and it looked like sound might be making its way back into mainstream LEGO sets. This year saw the launch of the long-forgotten Revan Rider set from the Creator line. This 360-piece set sold for a modest $20 and came with instructions for 2 motorcycles and included the first of this new style of sound brick. These new bricks no longer needed an external battery pack, as they each carried 3 replaceable small watch batteries. This brought the total size down to only 2x4x2 studs, meaning that these new bricks could be easily slotted into any build without any major design restrictions. Unlike the older bricks though, this one only made a single sound, which was a revving noise, but that's exactly what this set called for. That same year though, this same brick also came in a different set with a few small changes. This gray version came in the amazing 792-piece Monster Dino set and made a great roar when activated. These sets must have sold pretty well, because the very next year LEGO put out a new unique version. This time around we got a sound brick with a classic klaxon alarm sound as part of the Agents Turbo Car Chase set. This package came with nearly 500 pieces and sold for only $50, so you can already see how much cheaper these new bricks became. Now, moving into 2009, this year saw the next major LEGO sound brick release with the Grand Carousel. I love this set. The brick played a festive tune that would be at home home at any fairground and matched perfectly with the build's other electronic features. At just over 3,200 pieces, this is still the single largest LEGO set to ever include a sound brick. Now, despite all the momentum that LEGO sound bricks seem to have at this time, 2011 would see the last sound bricks in a LEGO set for nearly a decade. This year gave us the unforgettable LEGO Alien Conquest Alien Mothership set, which came with a brick that made a slightly spooky, out-of-this-world sound, as well as the Hillside House Creator build, which honestly may have been my favorite sound brick of this generation. Not only does the doorbell function, but it also includes a barking dog to let everyone know that there's someone at the door. Aside from a few Duplo sets though, LEGO remained conspicuously silent for the next 8 years. However, in 2019, things changed again when LEGO rolled out a brand new element, the light and sound siren. This 2x6x1 brick is completely self-contained, contains both flashing lights and a siren sound, and features a replaceable battery. This piece was only ever released in 4 LEGO City sets in 2019 and 2020, but I hope it's a sign of things to come. And this all brings us back to the Sorting Hat set. This set is the first new LEGO product in 4 years to include a sound brick, and they seemingly pulled out all of the stops. Not only is this brick a new shape, it's a 4x4x1, but it's also the first sound brick in this medium lavender color. While this is purely speculation, I believe that this color is slightly a nod to the pink bricks included in several Brickhead sets, because much like those, this brick is the quote-unquote brain of the Sorting Hat. But what really sets this brick apart from older models is the variety of sounds that it makes. Up until now, each sound brick had only ever had 1 or 2 unique noises. Well, the Sorting Hat can produce an astounding 31 unique combinations of lines, which is honestly pretty crazy. While this is admittedly a very cool feature, I do have to ask myself if a single talking brick is worth $40. I mean, without the sound brick, this set would likely retail for about $60 rather than $100. And for me, it's kinda hard to justify paying that kind of premium for such a novelty. Just for reference, the last major set to include a sound brick, the Hillside House I mentioned earlier, came with 714 pieces and only cost $70 back in 2011. To be fair, that's about $97 today if we adjust for inflation, but that's still 150 more pieces for about the same money. LEGO is constantly experimenting, and it's safe to assume that this set is a test. If it does well, I would expect to see more sets using these new sound bricks in the coming years. Recent sets like the new R2-D2 could have really benefited from a little sound to help it set it apart from older versions. Imagine all the sound effects that LEGO could add to sets from LEGO Star Wars, Ninjago, and various Speed Champions or Technic supercars. Let me know in the comments if you can think of any LEGO sets that would be particularly cool with a sound brick. However, if LEGO is set on going forward with these new sound bricks, one thing I hope that they can manage to do is improve the sound quality. I mean, I get that there's only so much you can do with a tiny plastic speaker, but if I'm dropping that kind of money on a single brick, I do expect some higher quality audio. Additionally, with regards to the Sorting Hat specifically, there's a pretty major localization issue. As it stands, the set only speaks English. The Harry Potter books were translated into dozens of languages, and translations are extensive. Of course, LEGO does primarily sell to English-speaking countries, but if talking bricks become more common, LEGO might need to consider adding multi-language audio. Personally, I think the best way to do that would be through a sound brick that can be programmed and controlled through a mobile app. I mean, it's no secret that LEGO is trying to increase the electronic aspect of its products, because the recent Super Mario line is proof enough of that. The Mario figure that these sets are built around might be just the most impressive electric offering that LEGO has released. Sound bricks have certainly resulted in some fun features in LEGO sets. But we also have light bricks to talk about. LEGO is perhaps the best example of a no batteries required toy. However, there's a small percentage of sets that include a little something extra. Light bricks are a fairly rare and surprisingly old LEGO feature. So today, let's explore their evolution and shine a little light on LEGO's long and spotty history with these battery-powered bricks. The very first LEGO light bricks came out all the way back in 1958 with the lighting device pack. This set came with 3 parts, including these 48 stud long cables, this rare brick with a slot cut out to run cables through, and one of these 2x4 translucent clear light bricks. What this didn't come with though was batteries. To power these lights, you needed to connect them directly to a 4.5 volt battery by folding the ends of the light cable under the tabs on the top of the battery. This was a little inconvenient and made integrating these lights into your builds pretty tricky, but for several years that was the only option. Over the next 8 years or so, LEGO released a few versions of this basic setup, including this set cleverly titled Light Bricks with Color Filters, which included, you guessed it, 2 of these smaller light bricks and a total of 6 translucent 2x4 bricks in red, green, and yellow. And then shortly after, in 1966, LEGO finally released the first battery box, and this changed everything. You see, a couple years earlier, in 1964, LEGO had begun to create train sets. These proved to be incredibly popular, and LEGO wanted to capitalize on this opportunity by appealing to the very large model train fanbase at the time. But to do this, LEGO needed to find a way to attach the batteries and lights directly to builds. Well, this absolute unit of a brick was something of a eureka moment at the time for LEGO, as it finally allowed for lights and batteries to be directly integrated into LEGO sets. While a city building is inherently stationary and can be built around an unsecured battery, a moving train is a different thing entirely, and this finally allowed for lights to be added to literally any build. However, for much of the next 20 years, light bricks really only popped up in LEGO's many motorized train sets. It wasn't until 1985 when LEGO started to experiment with putting light bricks into more mainstream sets. By the mid-1980s, cheap electronic toys were flooding store shelves, and LEGO was finding it difficult to compete with all of these flashy new offerings. In a bid to capture a share of this rapidly growing market, LEGO released the Light and Sound series. The mobile police truck and hook and ladder truck sets were the very first to feature these new light bars, which each had a red and blue flashing light. These light bars were powered by a new 9-volt battery pack. The next year, we got the Sonic Robot and the XT Starship featuring nearly identical lights powered by the same 9-volt packs. The Light and Sound series would continue on and off for 12 years and release a total of 14 sets during that time period, ultimately ending with the Interstellar Starfighter in 1997. While the new 9-volt battery box was much smaller, it was still quite large. And while that's not an issue for something like the monorail transport base, a lot of the smaller sets really felt the effect because they kind of turned out to be quite blocky by modern standards. One common complaint that people had about this series when it was released was the price. For example, the mobile police truck sold for $18.99 in 1986, and that's about $31 today for a 77-piece set. Very pricey. While today, cheap LEDs, smaller batteries, and less plastic have driven the prices down considerably, this was a concern for customers back then. Over the next 10 or so years, LEGO put out several more sets highlighting these 9-volt light bricks. While the majority of these were for trains, there are a few other sets worth pointing out. 1999's The Chrome Crusher set from Rock Raiders, as well as the Rock Raiders HQ, were 2 of the most unique sets in the Rock Raiders line and feature this self-contained light brick. Powered by 2 AA batteries, this piece is officially known as the Rock Raiders Laser, and showed that LEGO was committed to shrinking down light bricks to make them more versatile. Now, one of the biggest advancements made by LEGO for light bricks came in 2006 with the Bionicle Paraka line. Each of these sets contained one of these head connectors. When pressed, the eyes of each of these buildable figures would light up, creating a really cool effect. While these didn't require any extra battery pack, the batteries aren't easily replaceable without a few extra tools, and the lights were also pretty dim. Regardless, this was a huge step in the right direction. And although these light bricks were quickly dropped by LEGO, the Paraka Stronghold released in 2006 featured a true game changer once again in the form of this 2x3 brick. This brick emitted a red light and was meant to function as a spotlight for the guards. Unlike other Bionicle lights though, this had replaceable batteries, meaning that it could be used for years or decades with just a little bit of maintenance here and there. What was truly impressive about this new brick though was its size. Only slightly taller than a standard LEGO brick, this new element could be easily slid into any build regardless of shape or size. To drive this point home, LEGO released the Mythical Creatures set the same year. With 588 pieces, this Creator 8-in-1 set proved that any build could make use of these incredible new light bricks. Yup, you heard me right. We briefly got a few 8-in-1 sets back in the day around 2006, such as this set called Prehistoric Power, which features a few very clever designs. The Mythical Creatures set proved to LEGO that these light bricks would sell well enough for LEGO to commit to them, and by 2008, we were getting multiple sets a year featuring light bricks. For example, they popped up in the 2008 Stegosaurus set to make its eyes glow, as well as the Sunshine Home to light up the fireplace. So far, all of these had been red lights, but the Agent's Mobile Command Center changed all of that with the inclusion of a yellow light brick used in a very special way. Just opposite the light brick sits a projector screen, and in between the two there's room for a few small translucent pieces which contain different bits of mission intel. The light brick shines through the piece and displays the mission on the projector screen. 2009 gave us a few more offerings with the spectacular Fiery Legend, which featured a light brick to illuminate the dragon's fiery breath, as well as the Robo Attack from LEGO Agents, which had a light placed behind the flame. The Winter Village toy shop also included a light brick, which would be the first of several other Winter Village sets to include this light brick, as it would appear again in 2010's Winter Village Bakery to light up the bakery's oven, in addition to 2011's Winter Village Post Office, where the light brick was used in a slightly generic location to add light behind a window. But if you're a fan of these seasonal winter sets that LEGO puts out, you'll know that we're just getting started, because the Winter Village Cottage set in 2013 used a light brick to light up a fireplace, while the light brick in the 2015 Winter Toy Shop was used to light up the workshop inside. A few years later, the Winter Village Fire Station in 2018 featured a light brick behind the bell at the top of the building, and next up the Gingerbread House returned to lighting up a fireplace in 2019, which was immediately followed up by the Elf Clubhouse in 2020, which used a light brick in the elf's bedroom. But one of my all-time favorites is the 2021 Santa's Visit set, because a light brick is used to illuminate the Christmas tree. And also, I can't forget about the Alpine Lodge set from 2023 that once again featured a light-up fire. Clearly, it has become a major tradition for all of these holiday sets to feature at least one of these light bricks. Now, as light bricks caught on, many fan-favorite sets and themes introduced these fun bricks. We got the 3-in-1 Sonic Boom, which used 2 as lights, and even Hagrid's hut used one to light up the fireplace. As you may recall, LEGO pulled this same trick again a few years later with 2019's Hagrid's hut set. But back in 2010, LEGO had also released the amazing Quest Against Time from the Prince of Persia line. This set uses the light brick to illuminate the giant glowing crystal in the back of the build. As you can tell, the use of light bricks in sets began to lend itself to more creative applications around this time. In 2011, LEGO put out what might be my all-time favorite light-up set with the UFO abduction from the short-lived yet extremely nostalgic Alien Conquest line. This 211-piece set might be small, but it just oozes with charm. The light brick here, of course, is used for the aliens' tractor beam as they abduct a helpless farmer. This same year also saw the release of Whitecap Bay from the Pirates of the Caribbean line, as well as the first of LEGO's many lighthouses, Lighthouse Island. I can't lie, a lighthouse really does seem like the perfect fit for a light brick, and LEGO absolutely agrees because the company has released a handful of lighthouse sets over the years. Aside from this first offering, we've got the 528-piece Lighthouse Point, released in 2016, the Ninjago Lighthouse Siege, released in 2016, the LEGO Friends Lighthouse Rescue Center in 2019, and the biggest of them all, the Motorized Lighthouse in 2022, which has resulted in many people sharing pictures on Reddit and various online forums to just show off how perfect this light brick looks in this build. Just imagine if light bricks didn't exist. A lighthouse without a light would just feel so wrong. This latest lighthouse is easily the most impressive thanks to its over 2,000 pieces, but what really sets it apart is that it's one of only a few non-train sets to include both a motor and a light brick. Now, over the next few years, LEGO really stepped up their game and began releasing a few new light brick sets in nearly every major set release. In fact, we've now gotten a total of 80 different sets featuring these bricks. I don't have time to go over all of them, but some of the absolute best ones are definitely deserving of a mention. I mean, just look at how the Crazy Scientist and his monster set from 2012's Monster Fighters theme brilliantly uses a light brick as the Mad Doctor's reanimation ray, while that same year's Orc Forge from the Lord of the Rings used a light brick to power the eponymous forge. Lord of the Rings has seen a few light bricks over the years, including 2013's Tower of Orthanc, which is one of the coolest towers that LEGO has ever released, and uses a light brick in a somewhat unexpected way. This brick is found underneath Saruman's Palantir and causes the Seeing Stone to glow when activated. With over 2,500 pieces and standing at an impressive 29 inches tall, this was the tallest LEGO Lord of the Rings set for more than a decade. That is, until LEGO released this absolutely breathtaking set in 2024. While this set does come with more than double the pieces at 5,471, it's only slightly taller than its predecessor with a height of 32 inches. But I'm not talking about this set just because of its size. It also features a light brick exactly where you'd expect. Currently, this is the single largest LEGO build ever to include a light brick, but I suspect that it may have some competition in the coming years. As impressive as the glowing Eye of Sauron is, it's still just a display feature. However, the Temple of Erjitsu adds an incredible take on just how functional these bricks can be. This build features a small movie theater where the ninja can hang out and catch a show. When you turn on the light brick, you can see moving images appear on the screen. This is done with a really cool little build using some nano figures and a crank. I really love this feature. This is certainly an upgrade to the Agent's projector from a few years prior and highlights just how much LEGO can do with just a few pieces. Now, while buildings might be the most obvious place to find light bricks, there have been at least a few robots over the years, and one of my favorites is the 3-in-1 Robo Explorer from 2017. The location of this light brick is a bit unexpected, as it's placed in the robot's right arm as a flashlight. Another example can be found in 2019's Bastion from the short-lived but very fun Overwatch line. This set is pretty cool in its own right, and any LEGO build that transforms is always a win for me. Much like the Robo Explorer though, the use of a light brick here is fairly limited, as it's just used to make its eye light up. Not exactly groundbreaking, but it's a fun feature nonetheless that really helps elevate this build. Now, 2019 also somehow had another licensed set to use a light brick, though it managed to pull it off a bit better. The Upside Down is a fun build full of hidden Easter eggs for fans of the show. It also has an incredibly unique use for its light brick. In one room, there's a wall with a series of Christmas lights assigned to different letters, and in the show, these light up to help the characters communicate. Well, this set uses a one-of-a-kind transparent brick to recreate the effect with surprising accuracy. This is a fantastic use of LEGO's light bricks, and LEGO doesn't seem to be showing any signs of slowing down. In 2023, they released the super fun Space Roller Coaster, marking the first 3-in-1 set to get a light brick in 4 years, which can be used to give the various engines a little glow. But that's certainly not all, because in 2024, LEGO released what might be its most ambitious electronics set yet, with the Porsche GT4e Performance Race Car set. This 834-piece build sells for $160 US, which is quite high at first sight, but then you realize all the little bells and whistles attached to this build. This set can be fully remote controlled from any smartphone and features multiple light bricks for the head and tail lights. It's really cool, just like this brand new jack-o'-lantern gift with purchase set that was just released. This is the perfect set for a light brick. Now, looking ahead, what's next for LEGO light bricks? I mean, it's reasonable to assume that light bricks aren't going anywhere, and personally, I'd love to see some kind of programmable RGB lights for maximum color customization. Think of those RGB light bulbs that you can control with an app, or those light strips that you can control with a remote. But what do you think? If you have any cool sets with light bricks, let me know in the comments. But with that being said, as much as LEGO loves to add light bricks in sets these days, they also love hiding secret references in their sets, and I want to show you those. Click on this video right now to see 50 hidden secrets in LEGO sets, and don't forget to tap subscribe so you don't miss my next video coming very soon.